This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Friday the 24th day of August in the year 2018. Here is what we're tracking tonight. Former Minister of Public Service under the PPP administration, Jennifer Westford, and her former personnel officer, Margaret Cummings, were this afternoon freed of stealing $639 million from the government, after Magistrate Judy Latchman ruled that the prosecution failed to make out a strong case against the two women. The magistrate upheld the defense's no-case submission and agreed with the defense attorneys that the charges against the former minister were bad in law, since the Constitution of Guyana does not recognize government ministers as public officers. The prosecution has not yet decided on whether it intends to appeal the decision. The two were facing 24 counts of larceny by a public officer in connection with several payments totaling millions of dollars that could not have been accounted for under the last government. After the decision was handed down today, Ms. Westford said she never did anything wrong while she served as Minister of Government. She had always maintained her innocence. 48 witnesses were called by the prosecution during the case. Of those 48 witnesses, 10 of them represented the 10 administrative regions, and most of them could not recall receiving any money for any of the programs that payments were paid for. The charges covered a period from as early as the 19th of October 2011 to the 28th of April 2015. They also covered various sums of money, all in the millions of dollars, that were allegedly stolen from the government of Guyana by the two former officials. The least amount was allegedly stolen in October of 2011, and that was the sum of $3 million. After that date, the sums varied, with the highest amount allegedly stolen at one time standing at $75 million in November of 2014. Westford is still facing a number of criminal charges in connection with the alleged illegal transfer of several government vehicles in the run-up and just after the 2015 elections. More news in a moment.
Summer is for selfies with lots of data from GTT. Activate a 3-day or more data plan to get up to 35% extra data and a chance to win big. LOL this summer with GTT, Guyana's #1 network.
Summer is for friends, weekly prizes, and super summer getaways from Caribbean Airlines. So top up $1,000 or more and get 25% bonus credit plus a chance to win big. LOL this summer with GTT, Guyana's #1 network.
Welcome back. A man who was convicted on drug trafficking charges 2 years ago and was on bail pending the hearing of his appeal is back behind bars this evening after he was charged and remanded to jail for the murder of his reputed wife. The accused, German Bristol, appeared in court this afternoon and was not required to enter a plea to the indictable murder charge, which stated that he stabbed his reputed wife Shanice Lawrence to death last Wednesday in Freeman Street during an argument. The 24-year-old woman was discovered with a knife stuck in her neck. The reputed husband surrendered to the police at the Brickdam station after committing the gruesome act. Shocked family members recalled that the two were having problems in their relationship, but they never expected that those problems would have ended in murder. According to the family members, the woman only moved out of the house a few days ago, and that may have angered the man. Still in the courts 3 months after he reached a financial settlement with a youth he had shot in the mouth when the youth was 15 years old, resulting in an attempted murder charge being dismissed, Interdicted Police Cadet Officer Franz Paul was back in court today, this time facing illegal firearm and issuing death threat charges. The policeman, who is yet to be allowed back into the Guyana police force, was remanded to jail this morning after appearing before the chief magistrate, facing the charges that were related to a confrontation with his girlfriend. The court was told that on the 20th of August in Alexander Village, Paul pulled out a firearm and pointed it at his girlfriend, threatening to shoot her. The woman managed to wrestle the gun away from him and got it to a neighbor who took it to the police. It was then that it was discovered that the weapon was unlicensed. The interdicted policeman was immediately arrested and charges filed in the case. During his court appearance today, the police prosecutor objected to bail, noting the seriousness of the charges. The magistrate agreed and refused bail. He will have to appear in court later this month. A few years ago, the same police officer was charged and committed to stand trial for attempted murder after he shot a teenager in the mouth over a confrontation. As the case moved through the High Court, the youth, who became an adult by the time the trial started, decided to accept compensation and refused to offer evidence in the case. Paul was freed of those charges. Turning now to the oil and gas sector, while admitting that he has been listening to both sides of the argument over Professor Clive Thomas's suggestion for part of Guyana's oil earnings to go directly to citizens through a cash transfer, British High Commissioner to Guyana Greg Quinn believes the country's main focus should be to fix the infrastructure across the country. Responding to questions this morning at the press conference at his Bel Air residence, Mr. Quinn said if he was in the position of the government and saw the oil money coming, he would have been looking at improving the country's infrastructure.
If I was sitting and I knew that this oil money is coming in, then the first sort of things I'd want to be doing is the infrastructure. You know, that's the roads, that's the ports, that's the schools, that's the hospitals, all of that sort of stuff.
Currently, the British government is assisting Guyana with several infrastructure development projects under the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Partnership Fund. Guyanese economist Professor Clive Thomas triggered a national debate on the oil earnings recently, when he suggested during a recent forum that a small percentage of the oil earnings could go towards direct cash transfers to every household. He suggested a figure of $5,000 per household, but said it would have to be tied to several conditions and would mostly target poor families as a way of assisting them to ease out of poverty. The British High Commissioner said perhaps making the money available to get persons involved in businesses might be an avenue to consider.
Rather than give somebody $5,000 to spend on whatever it is they want to spend it on, do you consider giving somebody $5,000 to set up a business? To give them capital to set up a business. So they can then use that money to support and build their own sort of self-sufficiency.
The ExxonMobil oil company is expected to pour first oil in mid-2020. The company has discovered oil deposits in Guyana's waters equaling more than 4 billion barrels. Guyana stands to benefit from billions of US dollars annually, according to some financial analysts, when the oil revenue and taxes start to roll in. Finally, tonight, the planned conciliation talks between the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education did not take place today as expected, after the GTU stayed away from the meeting over late notice. GTU President Mark Light told news source this afternoon that his union was not informed in a timely manner about the meeting, and therefore the union did not attend. It was announced late yesterday afternoon that, acting in conformity with the provisions of an existing collective labor agreement, the Ministry of Education applied for mediatory services in the current salaries and benefits negotiations between itself and the union. The Ministry of Social Protection revealed today that it has agreed to provide conciliation services. When that statement came out, it might have been the first time that the union was hearing of the move. If conciliation fails, then the process will move towards arbitration. A former executive of the Guyana Teachers Union has stated that once the process reaches that stage, the parties will not want to negotiate on the duress. That therefore could put a spoke in the wheel of the planned strike action by the Guyana Teachers Union. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. Gordon Mosley reporting.